a couple of things. One is that the vast majority of healthy people can actually handle slightly cooler temperatures and be very comfortable once they have just a little bit of adjustment period. So that actually might be a little more healthy for them too, because keeping a home overly warm in the wintertime when you're going in and out and having that extreme temperature adjustment is maybe not quite as healthy as keeping the house a little on the cooler side, provided that you have everybody in the house can handle that. Obviously, there are people who are maybe a little older or maybe have other health challenges that's a problem for, and we have to acknowledge that and adjust accordingly. But if we can open up our mind about maybe allowing a little bit more variation in temperature between summer and winter, then our job just got an awful lot easier. And also, it turns out a lot of people sleep better in a slightly cooler environment. So maybe we can allow a little variation there as well. Let the building and the air in the building get a little cooler in the evening if that helps us out in coming up with a strategy for heating our buildings and keeping them warm in an ecologically sustainable fashion. And the last thing is to go back to what I was just talking about, is that as long as we keep the people comfortable, we don't necessarily have to keep every bit of the content of the building at exactly that same temperature, because most of the contents of an average home or commercial building can handle a cooler temperature with no harm at all, and as long as they're kept reasonably warm and above freezing. What that means is that one of our strategies in some cases can be to concentrate the heat so that it is really much more targeted at the people and keeping them comfortable than trying to keep the entire house. Maybe we could look at it this way. If you take the average American suburban home, which has now gotten up to over 2,000 square feet, think about how many cubic feet of air that is and how much mass that is. And we insist on keeping that. Let's say you like it at 72 degrees Fahrenheit. We insist upon keeping that entire building uniformly 72 degrees all the time. That is a much, much higher energy consumption than keeping you warm and maybe letting other parts of the home be a little cooler at the appropriate times. So that's another thing to keep in mind as you're strategizing about how to do this in a very energy efficient and ecological way. And let's also just kind of back up one more, another step in talking about our climate zones, and think about the fact that when we are in different climate zones, that we are going to have to use extremely different strategies in order to create buildings that are going to perform well in that particular environment. So if you're in the tropics, then you want a building that isn't going to absorb and store a lot of heat for you, because getting rid of heat is one of your big problems. And so we oftentimes create buildings with low thermal mass and a great deal of natural ventilation in those spaces. So the picture there on your upper left is a all-natural bamboo building from Bali that has sustainably harvested bamboo. And you can see that it has it's open to the breezes coming off the water, and that it's been designed basically to keep the thermal mass very, very low so that it's easy to keep that building from the tropics nice and cool year-round. But as we start moving farther and farther away from the equatorial regions, we start moving closer, more towards the poles, and we move into the temperate zones, then our building strategy is